The U.S. House of Representatives have moved one step closer on Thursday to overturning a federal waiver that would allow California to enforce a ban on gasoline-powered vehicles by 2035. We have been waiting for this, and this is good news. We're not there yet, and you need to listen to this whole segment so that you can understand all of the ramifications, and it's a lot, and it took us a lot of homework to get it so that we could explain it to you, because this waiver was granted by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, under former President Joe Biden, who had sparked opposition from automakers, fuel producers, and even President Donald Trump. The House voted 246 to 164 in favor of a measure to repeal the EPA authorization, which enables California to set stricter emissions standards than federal guidelines, aiming to boost sales of electric vehicles or other zero-emissions cars, which never helps anyone because every car manufacturer takes a loss. Well, the legislation now heads to the Senate, which it did today, where lawmakers have until mid-May to decide on the repeal. However, there may require an overriding of the ruling by the Senate parliamentarian, who determined that to repeal this, they cannot proceed under the Congressional Review Act, which is called the CRA, a special legislation procedure that Republicans are using to undo Biden's era policies. There's a lot packed in here, and I definitely want to explain this to you so you understand and you can tell others. I'll tell you what's going on and why it matters, but first I want to remind you to like this video and to subscribe to our channel to keep up with what's going on in the automotive world. And here's a quick word from today's video sponsor. People ask me all the time how I don't look my age. Well, here's one of my secrets. I've been using Native Path krill oil because these omega-3s are sourced from wild-caught krill. They absorb quickly, no fishy aftertaste, teeny small pill that's half the size of regular pills, and it has powerful antioxidants. I noticed a difference within a week, reduced my joint pain, inflammation, skin aging, and improved my mental sharpness. And I've been taking this for months now and noticed a huge difference. Right now, you can get this at getkrill.com/Lauren for a special 66% discount. That's getkrill.com/Lauren. The congressional vote on the CRA follows a series of actions by the Trump administration to reverse Biden's environmental policies while promoting fossil fuels. On Wednesday, the House passed additional measures to roll back EPA waivers on zero-emissions truck sales and nitrogen oxide pollution from heavy-duty engines. There is a lot packed in here, so I'm going to break it down so you understand because it took me some time too. California's 2035 ban on gasoline cars, targeted to start in 2035, introduced in 2020 by Gavin Newsom, is part of the state's effort to cut greenhouse gas emissions by more than 50% from light-duty vehicles by 2040. The ban is expected to impact 17 other states that have agreed to follow California's lead, including New York, Washington State, and many others. In a statement, Governor Newsom criticized the House vote, stating that big polluters influenced Republicans and they ignored legal advice. This is not true, but Newsom's opponents, including automakers such as Toyota and trade groups like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and SEMA, which is the aftermarket group, agree that California's requirements are unrealistic and would drive up car prices, limit consumer choice, and exacerbate the impact of existing tariffs on imported vehicles and auto parts. This is not exactly true, and we've covered the auto parts segment before, so make sure to check out that video. The repeal effort faces additional hurdles in the Senate, despite recent rulings from the Senate parliamentarian that the California waiver cannot be rescinded under the CRA, which we talked about, Congressional Review Act. Republicans are pushing forward with the repeal anyhow. However, Senate Republicans will need a simple majority to override the parliamentarian's ruling, which could prove challenging, particularly with moderate GOP senators. If the repeal fails, the EPA would have to undo California's emission rules administratively, potentially leaving the state's zero-emission standards in place for years, and that's not the goal. And there's even more good news. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy revealed during today's cabinet meeting with President Donald Trump that he plans to rewrite existing fuel economy standards for SUVs and trucks in order to bring down vehicle costs. And that's good for everybody. Toward the top of the meeting, Duffy pointed to the fuel standards finalized by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, known as NHTSA, under the Biden administration. And Sean Duffy's in charge of NHTSA, which required all light-duty vehicles to average 50.4 miles per gallon by 2030. That's impossible. And SUV and pickups were averaging around 35 miles per gallon at the time of the ruling was finalized. These standards were just one aspect of the previous administration's push to accelerate deployment of electric vehicles and its goals to lower vehicle-related emissions. However, what it does is it raises the price of all vehicles. Duffy said, "We're going to rewrite these standards, bring it down to something that is far more reasonable," adding that the new rules will help lower domestic vehicle prices. Again, good news for everyone. During Trump's Day 100 cabinet meeting, Energy Secretary Chris Wright advocated for increasing exports of liquefied natural gas, LNG, and criticized the Biden administration's efforts to slow new export terminals. This is all part of this EPA package. And in January 2024, the Biden administration had put a pause on approvals for new LNG export projects in order to conduct a study on the environmental and economic impacts of increasing exports. Trump signed an executive order on the first day in office, reversing that pause, and since then, the Energy Department has issued several permit extensions and approvals for more exports. All of this is going to lead to lower price on gasoline. That's really the bottom line. But Wright has predicted that LNG could become the largest U.S. export in the next few years. Exports of LNG are expected to jump in coming months as several nations like Japan and South Korea and members of the EU have expressed interest in increasing their imports from the U.S. Good news. LNG may even become a critical bargaining chip for other nations looking to get around Trump's sweeping tariffs later this year. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum continues to stand by the administration's plan to use public lands for energy development, a move that will likely shrink protected federal lands and waters. Early this month, it was revealed that the Department of the Interior, which he's in charge of, was reviewing the boundaries of several national monuments to see whether the lands had any potential for mining or oil production, again, lowering gas prices. And Burgum appeared to confirm that the administration's plans to do this with most federal lands and waters, saying that the department is working to identify the balance sheet of America. I like that. Let's see what it looks like. In a statement, Burgum said, "We're treating our national resources like the American balance sheet they are. And Americans' resources, the 700 million acres of surface that's public, 700 million of subsurface, and 2.5 billion offshore, all contain what we need to be self-sufficient in our supply chains." For trucks, lawmakers will vote on California rule requiring heavy-duty vehicle manufacturers to increase the sale of zero-emissions trucks. They will also vote to overturn the state regulation that aims to reduce nitrogen oxide emissions from heavy-duty trucks. Both of these regulations are granted waivers by the EPA to set more stringent emission standards. That's about to change for the better. And Republicans have used the CRA to attempt to undo Biden administration energy regulations, and the special legislation process allows lawmakers to bypass that filibuster and vote on a simple majority. And everybody has to put their vote out for us to see, so you can decide to vote for them or not. However, the Government Accountability Office, or the GAO, said last month that these waivers related to the Clean Air Act are not considered agency rules, but instead adjudicated orders. Therefore, it would not be subject to the CRA. This is very complicated. But on the April 30th date, the Senate passed a Senate Joint Resolution 31. It's called the Curtis EPA Emissions Reclassification Congressional Review Act, CRA essentially, by a vote of 52 to 46. This is really important because it means lawmakers have a path forward to removing California's power. Who cares what you call it? That's the ultimate goal. One more vote is needed. If the EPA rule is to be repealed, the EPA would be barred from issuing a substantially similar rule in the future unless authorized by Congress. This could mean California, its carve-out, would be gone and release the American people from its oppressive and nonsensical rules that infuriate most of us. A spokesperson for the California Air Resources Board told the Washington Examiner in a statement, in quote, "By using the Congressional Review Act, the Trump EPA is doing what no EPA under Democratic or Republican administrations in 50 years has ever done. And what the U.S. Government Accountability Office has confirmed does not comply with the law. Of course, they like their power, and they definitely don't want to get rid of it. It is unclear whether legal challenges will arise from the House's efforts to overturn the California waivers, but we'll be watching." And since entering office, Trump said, as well as Republicans, that have set their sights on regulations, particularly those in California, that look to bolster their electric vehicle industry and reduce gasoline-powered vehicles that are available to you. Well, that's about to change because Republicans have argued that California's emission rules are set to de facto national standards and force consumers to transition towards electric vehicles whether they like it or not. We'll be watching the Senate vote and keep an eye on it for you. And of course, I will be reporting. This Senate joint resolution would nullify the EPA rule that was put in place by Biden and remove the electric vehicle mandate, which is the ultimate goal. So make sure to follow us and we'll keep you posted. If you like this video, give it a like and subscribe for more videos like this, and check out our car review channel, Car Smarts. You can support me by buying me a cup of coffee, and if you want even more content, check out the links in the description. I'm Lauren Fix. Thank you so much for watching.